topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, the home of Googlization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy shift going on in the world of business, technology, and HR. Here's your host, Ira Wolf.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Googlization Nation, and thanks for listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you.
So, and hopefully by next week, the new commercial, the new intro will be there. Just to have
hopefully
had a little bit of a glitch on the voiceover and getting it to work with the video. So hopefully we'll be there. But it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, and hopefully you're feeling better this week than last week when you're recovering from some troubles.
Yes.
So, yeah, we got an exciting week. One of my favorite shows. This is probably the fourth or fifth time our guest was on, Kevin Grossman from the Talent Board. But one of my favorite subjects, certainly something I talk about all the time, about the candidate experience, which obviously leads into the bigger picture of employee experience. But we'll be talking about the just came out last week, the 2020 Candidate Experience Research. And for those who aren't familiar with the Talent Board or the research, it's based on this year's study. I don't remember what the last year's statistics were, but it's based on 153,000 interviews, surveys. Big number.
Quite a sample, isn't it?
Yeah, with candidates through 133 companies. That's just in North America. They do this worldwide. So it's, the research that comes out of it is very strong. So we're talking about that, some interesting changes this year. Again, we'll see if they're going to be consistent or not. But there's still a lot of problems going on. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done on the candidate experience. And
a lot.
And as one of the things we'll talk about with Kevin, or just, I don't know if we'll talk about this, but they only measure the candidate experience from the time somebody applies. So they can go backwards and say, how is the experience getting into the application? But they're really only measuring it there. So it's a portion of a sampling, but there's how many candidates. One is how many companies don't participate in the survey, and it's usually the best of the best that are interested in improving that participate in surveys.
Right.
So, I don't even know if it's an 80-20 rule, but it might be the 10-90 rule at that point. But the other thing that happens is that what about all the candidates that don't participate because they weren't in that process?
Right.
A ton, because a lot of other conversations are just, it's just not good where the candidate experience is on this. Last week. We talked about on one of the roundtables, the JobSync roundtable, we were talking about the employee experience and the candidate experience. In fact, one of Kevin's partners, and he may show up today, is Jerry Crispin.
Jerry might show up. Great.
Yeah, he had a conflict. He was supposed to be here, and then he had a conflict. So he may or may not be participating. But he was on a roundtable last week that we were with Craig Fisher, that we were talking about the candidate experience. And essentially it came down to the HR tech stack, that people try to solve candidate experience with different technologies, which is fine, except people keep creating this tech stack. And I talked about it as the Jenga tower. We got that move. We pulled out the peg. Now we got another one in, and we build it higher and higher. And they go, it's working, but it's pretty fragile, and we don't want to bump it. So that's so again, the whole candidate experience needs to be revamped. The work that the Talent Board does is just outstanding. So we want to get to Kevin real quick, and then we also have our bonus section ahead of the curve this week. It's going to feature our buddy Mike Spermuli. And we're going to be talking about Clubhouse.
Yes.
Clubhouse. And again, it's sort of the new rage. It's sort of where Facebook, Twitter was 12, 13 years ago.
Right.
Said, oh, I don't have time for this stuff. Oh, my kids use that. But there's a lot of big people. The other night they had Elon Musk did a whole session, conversation, a lot of buzz yesterday about Jeff Bezos. So yes, there's some trivial stuff going on that may not be highly relevant, but there's some really, really good conversations going on about the future of education, future of work, future of jobs, climate change, with some very, very powerful people that are contributing. So we're going to find out a little bit more.
Sounds like it's a platform that everyone should know about, and I'm glad we've got Mike on to tell them about it.
Yeah, for sure. So today, before we get there, I just want to make sure that everybody, for updates about future podcasts, about upcoming webinars, going to be doing an adaptability summit in March. If you want to be on the list, be able to register, get some bonuses with that. Please sign up for Googlization Nation. Just go to googlizationnation.com. All we need is a first name and an email address, and you'll get updates about the podcast and anything else that's happening. The other thing is we're really excited about introducing a new sponsor today, Ngomu, and we will,
really excited.
Yeah, so you'll hear a little bit about them, and then right before we break, I'll have you know a lot more about them, Joyce, than I do so far. So we'll have you do a little intro for them. But we're very grateful that Ngomu is now part of Geeks Geezers and Googlization. So with that said, why don't we move right into to get Kevin on here?
Kevin on, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Kevin is part of is president and one of the founders of the Talent Board. Kevin, welcome back.
Not one of the founders. I wish I could claim that.
Oh, okay.
I was involved early on as a volunteer. Jerry Crispin, Ed Newman, and Elaine Orler are the ones who put it together and eventually recruited me on board to help run the Talent Board. So I
knew you were involved for a long time. So
these kids today in their clubhouse, I'm barely hanging on to Facebook. I don't even know. And I just checked out Reddit for the first time, believe it or not. Never had gone because of all the buzz around stock trading. So anyway, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Kevin, thanks for the compliment about being one of those kids in Clubhouse. So, there's some of us older kids that are trying to figure it out and find our way about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's excellent. So really excited about the new report that came out, and we certainly want to talk about some of the key takeaways, some of the differences from 2019. I was really excited. I know you guys were anticipating, what's changed, because last year was sort of a crazy year. Many companies were still in super hiring mode because not every industry collapsed. Not like entertainment or hospitality and some travel. So I think I was correct. The overview was you had 153,000 candidates
in North America, yeah, and almost 200 companies that participated this last year. Overall, globally, 135-ish from North America.
Yeah, is that about the same as prior years?
No, I mean last year was we were down in participation. I mean, obviously because of COVID-19 and the impact on a lot of industries that we usually saw greater participation from, that unfortunately were decimated and are still struggling now. But as you said, there definitely were industries, technology, finance and insurance, some services sectors, even some consumer goods for that matter, and others that fared much better and continued to. But we definitely saw it was down in participation because of that impact, though. But still really good data set.
I'm fascinated by the fact that you're doing this globally, and we're just getting to see the North American part today.
Yeah, it's all done. We were trying to get it all done and out the door before the holidays, but because of everything, our deadline sliding because of COVID, and the survey deadlines when companies had to complete their candidate surveys, everything kind of moved. But all the research is actually available now on our website for free, all regions. So North America, EMEA, APAC, and Latin America as well. Those other three are smaller data sets, but still really good information.
And for the website, and I always I want to make sure it's the talentboard.org.
.org, the talentboard.
Yeah, right. You have to make the T. I always experiment a little bit. It's like, which one is it? Does it have the the or the? Or,
yeah, it's the
T, yeah, THE, not THE, yeah. Right? It's like, so let's. What was I guess throwing it back to you? What was the biggest surprise that you saw? What did you not anticipate?
So here, if we go into that Wayback Machine, and my goodness, it feels like 10 years ago now, that considering what we've all been experiencing since COVID has impacted the global economy, not just, right? I mean, it's still happening, still going on today. So if you go back, we were really excited. I think that a lot of organizations, a lot of companies, businesses were super excited about another boom year going into 2020, right? We had the lowest unemployment in decades, right? Month after month job growth. And it felt like a really exciting time. And we were excited. Maybe we can get hundreds of companies to participate this year. And then come March, and I say March 13th because my youngest daughter, who's 10, we've been distance learning since last March. We're still not back in school yet in California. And that she remembers that quite well because that was the last day of in-person school, Friday the 13th. And so then all of a sudden, everything changed. But one of the things, though, with the companies still were participating, we were still gathering data. And as we began to look at it, there were some very unique things that we saw that we hadn't seen previous. So, for example, there's a lot of key ratings that we asked the candidates to give us about that company specifically that they had gone through the process. So the way our model works is that an organization, a business participates, they survey a pool of candidates across job types usually, and asking them about their experience at that one company. It's anonymized responses and confidential for the candidates as well as the companies, except for those, which I'll touch on, I guess, later about who win our Candy Awards. Anyway, so what we saw was that one of the key questions that we ask in the beginning of the survey is, based on your experience, what kind of a relationship are you going to have as a business and a brand going forward? And the answers go from, I had a great experience, I'm going to increase my relationship, which means really I'm going to apply again and refer others potentially. And for consumer-based businesses, it could impact purchasing decisions, like I'm willing to buy more stuff, and have brand affinity. The other end of that scale is, I had a horrible experience, I'm done. It's what we also call the resentment rate. I'm not willing to do anything with your business or your brand again going forward. That great experience, the willingness to increase the relationship, increased over 40% in North America.
Wow.
And it is something that is quite dramatic. Actually, let me strike that. It increased over 20%. The resentment rate decreased 43%. That's to be more accurate. So, but the fact of the matter is, we weren't expecting to see that, right? Here we are, millions of people now are being furloughed and laid off, and candidates have been put on hold, but yet their positive ratings, the sentiment was higher. Now, you touched on this, Ira, when you were introducing the talent board and the research that we do, that even in the best of years, most of the organizations that are participating are already leaning into wanting to make improvements in recruiting and hiring. They're willing to take that step to get that data from their candidates. So there is this kind of leaning in on wanting to improve and have it, but not to jump that much more on the positive side and to reduce, because prior to 2020, the resentment rate, as we call it, in North America especially, was going like this. It had increased 40% since 2016. So we thought we'd see more of the same, maybe mixed, but not that other way around. And a couple of things, what we know now is that when employers were put into that, a forced level of transparency like they had never experienced before, right? What do you tell the candidates that were ready to come in for interviews that now you have to put on hold because we have to virtualize everything? What do you tell the new hires that had start dates that now have to get pushed out because we don't know what's going to happen with the business? What do you tell your employees what we're trying to do to keep our business moving forward and avoiding furloughs and layoffs, which unfortunately some companies could not avoid? That empathic communication was really amplified. Not every company, but a lot of our candid community, companies that were leaning into that, we saw that increase. That was one of the reasons why we think it drove the positive experience. Candidates obviously had to be more forgiving, right? Because there's now millions of people out of work. Even the hourly population, the one that was probably, I would argue, the most decimated to date in the impact of COVID, still had some of the highest positive ratings that we'd seen in that population for years. It's like it didn't really make sense, but it does now based on what we know. And I think the empathic communication, constantly trying to help figure this is what we're doing in our business, and the candidates being more forgiving drove those changes.
So it's a higher level of communication with the candidates, which I've always maintained is a good idea.
Well, and that's both automation and human interaction, right?
Right.
So Ira, you were talking about this event that you did with JobSync, I believe, right? About talking about the tech stack. So I've the past year or so, I've been having this kind of a mantra where I say the candidates don't care about your tech stack. They don't care about whether you have a chat bot or not on the site. What they care about, first and foremost, is getting a job. But we know if you run the numbers, unfortunately, majority of people for any given job at any given time they're not going to get hired. In fact, their journey ends after applying. That's as far as they're ever going to get. A much smaller tier will get screened, interview, assessed, maybe made offers to, and then that much smaller percentage gets hired. 93% of the North American candidates in our research last year didn't get the job. That reflects real life to a certain degree. And so, but what they do care about is the experience that they have interacting with technologies. And again, it goes back to communication, engagement, expectation setting. And a lot of that is going to be driven by recruiting technologies today. And if I at least can get questions answered on your career site from a chatbot where I had no communication before, we see that as a positive, and it does increase the positive sentiment in our data. So recruiting technology.
And you want candidates who are not embraced and taken on to also have a positive feeling or thought about the organization,
right?
So that maybe sometime in the future, when you might be recruiting, and they might have come in second, they might then be able to take a job with that same company.
Yeah, potentially. The perception of the candidate, when it's more positive of their experience, they are more willing to look again and be willing to, maybe there is another position down the line. Or I'm willing to buy stuff from your company still because I'm a fan of the brand. And I did, you were fair to me. At the point of telling somebody no, there's always negative sentiment that skews down. That's never going to go away. That's just part of the experience, no matter how great that candidate experience is. But it's never going to be about happy candidates, because they're only going to be happy unless they get hired. If they don't get hired, then it's about how fair was the process. That's what we see engage every year.
So Kevin, I think we talked about, I don't remember which of our conversations this came out on, and I don't remember it was you or Jerry that had said this, but the people who are rejected, there's a natural dissatisfaction. There's an unhappiness. There's a resentment. I mean, it's part of it. I didn't get the job, so and I think I deserved it. Yeah. So that always could be reflected a little bit change. But what I found remarkable last year in the I'm still going through all the reports.
Sure.
Yeah. Last year, on the perception graph, the NPS graph, the Net Promoter Score graph, the difference of perception between employers and candidates.
Yes.
The gap with, I think it was with researching, applying, everything, but the not selected category closed. The gap's closed.
Yes, they did from the year before.
But what was interesting in going with this conversation is Last year, the employers gave themselves a 20 rating on not selected, how they dealt with the people who were rejected.
Right.
And just to give people a reference, between 0 and 50 it's okay.
Yeah, the way that we look at Net Promoter, we're not going through the lens of promoters and detractors like in consumer-based Net Promoter, but any score, because this is such a negative sentiment already out of the gate.
Right.
Any positive NPS is okay.
Right. So, so again, between 0 and 50 is okay. Above 50 is where you want to be. Below 50 is not. Below 0 is not where you want to be. The
20
candidate
seems to be pretty low.
Well, not only that, but you said everything improved, except that the not selected employer perception decreased.
Yes,
it went from 20 to 7.
Their kind of self-assessment even went down itself, but no matter, and it was so. This is what we call awareness alignment, and when we go from the year before in 2019, there were definitely pretty wide gaps in how employers, and we usually saw that year after year, where employers always rate themselves higher than the candidates do. That was pretty normal. It does vary in the other regions, but they're similar when you look at those charts, except for when we get into 2020, where employers understood that this is a different world today for the most part. When our research really started to gather steam was when COVID had impacted, and the candidates themselves. So that awareness alignment was there. How we're delivering recruiting and hiring, and the reality of this, what's in the world today, and how candidates are perceiving that, except when they're rejected.
Right,
and that's always going to skew more negative, even though the employers went down in their rating as well.
So that could be a positive, that the employer's perception,
yes,
how we're doing, went down. It's like, oh, hopefully it means that we need to improve it. What was interesting is the candidate's perception of the people who got rejected got less bad. It went from like 39 to 34.
A little bit. Yeah, it did actually.
It's still pretty bad. It's still 30 minus.
It does. I mean, it did align. The awareness alignment did align again with what we saw with the overall elevation of positive sentiment across the journey, as we call it, and the employers being more realistic, I think, overall with their ratings. But when you get to the offer and onboard stage, it still is pretty similar year after year, where it either levels out or flips, where that's where you get the halo effect with candidates. Because I am getting an offer, I am getting hired. I'm more likely to rate you higher at that point. Although what we've seen, though, from 2020 and the past few years, employers always feel like they have more work to do at onboarding. That's not unusual, which is why they tend to rate themselves lower across all the regions than their candidates are rating. Yeah. But it was interesting again to see. It just aligned with what we did end up knowing about last year, is that awareness alignment was much tighter than we had ever seen before.
Right. And then the other area that there was a big gap was the onboarding, which is sort of just mentioned, is that it was still good, because even the candidates gave a 40% got a score of 40, and the employers had 76, so pretty high. But that was the only gap that actually increased.
Right, and that was a positive gap for the employers, because it was the employers who rated themselves a 40, and the candidates rated higher at the 76. But that again goes what we've seen the past few years of employers indicating to us through the data that they feel like they have work to do at the onboarding stage, no matter how high the candidate ratings are.
And I think that's valid. Mm-hmm. I think there is a lot of room for improvement in onboarding, and COVID has only exacerbated that situation, because now, instead of being able to hand somebody a sweatshirt saying thank you for being in our orientation, it has to be a box that's delivered through the mail or through the delivery service or whatever.
Right. And remember, I mean, think about when my candidate experience informs my early employee experience, right? And if I'm hired, that is out of the gates. Could be potentially an early retention setter or a no-getter. Really, it depends on what that experience is like. And when everything had to be virtualized we talk a lot about how, everybody had to go remote. Well, it's not everybody though, right? Because professional hires in a lot of industries and a lot of companies, management, there's that realm that we tend to always talk about a lot, but there's still a lot of individuals, the hourly population, a lot of people that had still be customer facing essential workers. That's a whole different world for them.
Whole different world
that they experience and continue to experience, right? So we have to remember that too, that it's not all about everybody was able to go remote, because that's not the reality for a big swath of individuals. But again, the candidates adjust the sentiment as well, because we get a lot of comments, open-ended comments, commentary. Mm-hmm. The sentiment was very much the same, although a little bit of an increase. We're bummed we didn't get to move on any farther, but glad that you told me what was going to happen. And we saw that at a greater increase than we had seen in previous years, because there's a lot of, also in the commentary, a lot of angry commentary too, right? I hate you.
Right.
I mean, but and that's normal for some of that feedback, but it's those things, but you're also looking for themes, right? I mean, so, and sure. One comment doesn't make a trend, but multiple comments around a theme could mean something to the employer that they need. That's another valuable part of the data that they get too.
Yes, for sure. That's true. And collecting open-ended data on that many people, my gosh, that's a daunting task.
So we just have a few more minutes here. Sorry, guys. What were some of the other takeaways? I know we talked about
just what I was going to ask.
Well, I think that give you a couple more examples that what was pretty clear is, again, feedback is really important, not just asking for feedback, because we've been talking about that for a long time. And there are many organizations that, whether they've participated in our benchmark research or not, who have invested in continuous feedback, right? Asking candidates of only a handful of questions at different stages of the recruiting process of what that is about. And they have been collecting that, and that's important data for them to find. But it's the giving of feedback. So the giving of feedback, and this is usually, we're talking about the folks that are at the finalist stage. You're not going to give feedback to somebody who applies and is completely unqualified. That's just not a reality, especially for companies of any hiring volume. So again, for those who are getting feedback, their positive grade experience goes up another 15%. We saw that in 2020. We saw that in the previous year too. But it's always important to note, because it's just little things that go a long way in candidate experience. We're not talking about major change management initiatives, even though it could involve, maybe there's a new system you're implementing that's going to impact experience, but it's incremental changes around communication and feedback. And not only just giving feedback, job fit qualification feedback, assessments are being used a lot more as a screening tool for many organizations. In fact, coupling that even with the point of the application, not later down the line. Giving candidates feedback about what was learned from the assessment is not something that too many companies do, but that positive experience actually was even higher.
It's highly valued, right?
It is 20% increase in the overall grade experience when they were given feedback about the assessment that they took. And my point being is, the thing that I think that we started seeing more last year than we had paid attention to in previous years is that it's not so much about just giving feedback. It's the way that it's framed. So if you, and these are always usually brief exchanges, brief conversations, it's not so much about, this is why we're not hiring you. We recommend you go do X, Y, and Z. This is what, and listen, your assessment said this, we recommend you go do this, get this. I mean, if there's a piece, if recruiting teams can be, and hiring managers as well, can be a little bit more.
That to be considered so valuable to the candidate.
My gosh, it goes miles or kilometers, depending on where you're at in the world, right? It goes a long way, just little incremental changes like that. So that was one of the other bigger things, was the value of assessment feedback too.
Yeah. Love that.
Right.
Being thank you, Kevin.
And the earlier that that companies do it in the process, actually the better, which means, Ira, there's going to be higher numbers for people who are selling assessments.
Yes.
And the reason is that the company can begin to weed out the ones that they're not going to be interested in earlier, because they've got that assessment information earlier and don't have to waste so much time.
That is exactly
invest so much time with candidates.
I mean, you're always going to have serial appliers on some percentage of individuals that are going to apply to they're never going to be qualified for your job, but if you can get better align what the job description is, who you're hiring for, and why. I mean, going back even that far, a better intake session with the hiring managers. Really, this is what we are looking for,
right?
Including salary ranges in the job descriptions that help self-select. People self-select out, right?
Sure.
I'm not even going to apply because this is not in my range, or this is not going to be a job for me. Yeah,
companies make that mistake, Kevin. I think because they say, well, we don't pull off who might actually take our job. But in fact, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Right.
Because it means that they have to take the extra time to interview people who will never take the job because it doesn't pay anywhere near what they're looking for.
And I think that's important too. So, I mean, there's so many other variables that impact, again, what the eventual experience is and what that perception is. But we find that the more transparency, the better. Expectation setting is always key. And when that's done throughout, I mean, another big jump, one of the last things I'll share, 50% increase in a great experience when both recruiters as well as hiring managers, which I know is not always in the purview of the recruiters, no matter how much they're trying to get the hiring managers to play.
Right.
But if they tell those interviewees, these are the next steps, and I'm going to follow up with you here, and they do it.
Right.
That's a huge jump.
Make promises and keep them. That's how we build trust, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Great information, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kevin, it goes so fast, and there's so much information here. How can people get a hold of you? How can they download these reports? And I know the Talent Board offers webinars and other trainings and certifications and everything else. So
we got everything that we do is at the talentboard.org. That includes to download our research, articles, workshops, webinars that we put on. We've got a new learning program that's publicly available starting in March. It's a 6-week professional development course. Lots more stuff that's coming, and you can find all that on our website, and how to participate in the research too.
Excellent. And I know you just announced the Candy. It's CANDE.
Yes, short for Candidate Experience.
CANDE. Can you name some of the top the companies that won?
Oh yeah, so it would New York Presbyterian, Deluxe, Lockheed Martin.
Yes.
I mean, those are some of the. I mean, and there's, in fact, if you go to the talentboard.org and you go to the Candy Winners, which is part of the pull down menu, you can see all the companies that have won year after year. And these are the companies that we publicly tout. Those who don't have the highest positive candidate ratings, we don't reference because it's confidential for them to get that benchmark research. But D2L, even iSIMS, who's in our space, right? They participate, and they've been a Candy winner, very high candidate experience. Optum, Sharp Healthcare, lots of healthcare that's one of our biggest industries that participates every year. Colorado Springs Utilities, Inspire Brands, a lot of restaurants under Inspire Brands, and Bill Trust, Johnson & Johnson. The list goes on. But if you look at the list, you'll see at least the ones that we publicly name that have won our awards. It is a mix of across industries and companies, big and small.
Excellent. Right. Appreciate it. And thanks again for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Certainly provides me a lot of content and ammunition.
Me too.
To be able to go out there. It's always good to see you, Kevin. You're back anytime. I encourage everybody to go up and look at the talentboard.org, download some of the information if you're looking for examples of what other companies are doing, how you can improve if you need to be led by example. You just got to list, and there's a lot more up there. So
thank you, Kevin. And HR professionals who are looking to improve their candidate experience, this is a great resource for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mel.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Kevin. Wow, another interesting show that went supersonically fast, right?
Yeah, it always does. It always does. Hey, and we want to be able to talk about Clubhouse a little bit. So we're going to cut away to a real quick break. We're going to have our new sponsor in Gomu.
Yes,
can you, Joyce, 30 seconds, how would you describe Ngomo?
We know that young people in particular, want to learn and grow. And what we also know is that the most important device that they have are these cell phones. And this is a platform for learning, which is just on the cell phone, on mobile devices. It only works for members on iPads and phones, smartphones, the Android or the iPhone. And it features over 80 coaches who are working in the health and wellness field, in the career development field, in the business development field, all different areas to help individuals to learn and grow. And it's like it's getting group coaching at a very reasonable amount of money for on an ongoing basis. So you're in classes and you're encouraged to grow, and you can be on an unlimited number of learning communities with one small investment.
Super. We'll be hearing a lot more about that for the next 12 months for a while. And hopefully we'll have Al, why not, on the show sometime to talk about it as well. Right now, we're going to take a break. We want to thank everybody for listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. If you're not part of Googlization Nation, go to googlizationnation.com, sign up for that. And we will be right back after hearing from our sponsors, Ngomo and the Success Performance Solution. And then we're going to be talking about Clubhouse. Hiring top talent shouldn't be left up to the roll of the dice. And yet, that's exactly what many organizations do. They roll the dice, cross their fingers, and pray for a better outcome. Hiring the right employees the first time is much too important and way too costly to leave to a game of chance. Your employees and your customers deserve better. For 25 years, Success Performance Solution has been helping small and medium-sized businesses hire smarter. They offer pre-employment and leadership assessments from typing and data entry to C-suite competence. Whether it's production, sales, healthcare, call centers, or management, Success Performance Solutions can help. Visit their website at www.successperformancesolutions.com to schedule a free demo or call 800-803-4303.
A lot of you might be feeling like you're standing in deep shift. But do you know what grows and rises out of deep shift? Opportunity. To successfully navigate the shift to the new normal, each of us must learn to rapidly adapt to the speed of change. Some of us are hardwired for this. Others, not so much. That's where Success Performance Solutions can help. Success Performance Solutions is now your AQ headquarters. Whether you are personally struggling with the next chapter in your career or wondering how ready your team is for fast, disruptive change, our AQ assessment and coaching will provide you a detailed, scientifically backed roadmap to guide you into the new normal. Optimize your adaptability today. Contact Success Performance Solutions about evaluating your team's change readiness or joining our upcoming AQ Masterclass. Visit successperformancesolutions.com or call us at 800-803-4303.
Imagine being able to grow great employees and advance your emerging leaders with one small monthly investment. With the Ngomu app, you can support your employees in career development, health and wellness, and even personal development without spending a lot of effort to schedule and hold numerous trainings. With the efficient app, your employees will have access to dozens of coaches in groups and one-on-ones for whatever topic they need or want to work on anytime, anywhere. Picture the positive impact on your team by having access to over 80 coaches. Learn more at ngomu.com today.
And there we are. And I forgot to mention that before we went on the break. I love their hashtag, Be More. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's a great hashtag. So we are at our ahead of the curve segment. And this time, we're not talking with Joyce. We're going to be talking with Mike Spermuli. So
Yes.
here is our buddy, Mike.
Hello.
Clubhouse.
Nice to be back.
Yeah.
How are you doing, guys?
We're good.
Great to have you back,
welcome
Mike.
back, and Happy New Year. So
Thank
I know
you.
I've talked to you,
Yes.
but our listeners have not. So we're on behalf of them, we're sending you a Happy New Year. So I mentioned Clubhouse the other day, and my wife, who you know, Michael,
I do.
it sounds like some pornographic site. It's like a Clubhouse. What is, what's that? It's not at all. As I said, it's
Yeah,
fascinating.
lest anyone think that that's what we're peddling here. It's not that at all.
Right. And again, it is social media, but it's sort of on steroids because it's audible. So you're able to interact and listen. So, I mean, we're talking to the audience, and they certainly can come back and communicate through comments. But this would be literally having anywhere from a handful to thousands of people in a room where we'd be able to chat. But it's interesting because it's not, we can do, somebody say, hey, we can do that on Zoom. Well, you could, except that now there's a little anonymity. You can just listen. You don't have to being on Zoom all day long is tiring. It's
tell me
exhausting.
about it.
Ever.
Right. So now is you can communicate. You can be doing a walk. You can be exercising. You can be doing something else and participating in this. So without me going too far, let's talk about what is Clubhouse. I know you've been a member of it a little bit. I just got in maybe a week.
Yeah, I'm a veteran. I'm in 3 weeks. That's how things move in the social media world.
That is the
So Clubhouse apparently has been around for about a year or so.
Yeah, last day.
And they've been,
I think it was.
yeah, they've been building it and kind of tweaking it, and it's been behind the scenes. But you talk about businesses benefiting from the pandemic. I think the timing was just right for them. And before I even get into Clubhouse, I'll mention that I think all of us on this show have been around a while. We've seen it all. We've done it all. We've seen different social media platforms come and go. And I haven't ever really been excited about any of them until I ran into Clubhouse. So currently, a couple of things we'll get out of the way up front. Number one, it's only available on iOS at the moment. I'm sure that's going to change. When? I have no idea. So Android fans, sorry, but check back because they're going to be adding to that, I'm imagining, once they open it up. The second thing is that Clubhouse is invite only at the moment because they're still technically in beta, but the thing's growing by leaps and bounds every day. So if you're interested in Clubhouse, try to find someone who's on there and see if they will invite you. So that's actually part of the beauty of this system, is that you have to be invited in, and then it links in the bottom of your profile who brought you in there. And what that does is it psychologically ups the bar a little bit of the quality of people who you're interacting with, because you have to use your real name. You can't spoof your name with a whole bunch of other different entities because it links to your cell phone. So there's a little bit of a check and balance system in place. So that's the mechanics. It's an app that runs on iOS, so it's on iPhone or iPad or on your Macs. And it is audio only. There is no messaging built into the app. There's app as far as texts. There's no video. The recordings are not saved, at least currently. That may change because they're, tweaking with different features and what have you. But think of it this way. Imagine you're going to a conference, and it could be a conference in whatever industry you're in. Let's say you're in the lawn care industry, and you go to the annual conference, and every conference has breakout rooms. Some of those rooms are going to be of zero interest to you. Others are going to be incredibly interesting. Well, the way Clubhouse is set up is you kind of walk through the hallway, that's what they call it, and you see the type of groups that are in place that are happening right now. And it's all real time and live. Once you're on the platform, you can pop into any room that is public. They do have the ability to create private rooms, but there's a ton of public rooms out there ranging on every topic you can imagine. From business development to how to use Facebook ads, to how to advertise on Google, how to be a leader, how to be a coach. And you can wander into that room and sit quietly and just soak in all the knowledge. Or if you have questions, you could virtually raise your hand, and the speaker and the moderators will call you up onto the virtual stage where you can ask your question and then give you specific feedback related to that, or just have a conversation. So there's a lot of potential here, and I'll share some of the ways that I've been using it, but let me come up for air because, I could probably go for the full 18 minutes here if uninterrupted.
So well, that was where I was going to lead, Mike, because I found a couple interesting sites, and just for, all things social media, almost all things platforms like this immediately go to marketing. So yes, if you're interested in how can I improve my brand, my marketing, how can I use YouTube, Twitter, I mean, you name it, there are groups that are there. There is.
But it's not just that. There's more to it,
right?
Than that, and that's where you're going.
A room on education. What was happening on education. There's a lot on climate control. There's a lot on the future of work. There's a lot on leadership. There's a lot on careers. So it's almost of any interest. And then some are really specific if people have hobbies or certain passions or interests. But there are some high level conversations with a lot of very interesting people, knowledgeable people. There's a lot of professors. There's deans of universities that are participating in some of these conversations. And then you have the common person who's saying, hey, how can I find the job? Or I just started a new business on Shopify, and I'm trying to figure out how do I improve my ranking.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, you have the ability, so that you're not inundated with stuff that is not of interest to you. You have the ability to tick off on a list what topics are of interest to you. And then the app will curate those in your hallway. So if you're not interested in, the nut and bolt industry, for example, then you're not going to select that in manufacturing as being one of your interests. But there's everything in there. In addition to everything you mentioned, there's support groups for people in recovery. There are meditation groups. Anything under the sun. So yeah, the marketers tend to always get to a platform first. That's just the way it is. And then it starts to build out, and you are able to see some of these sub niches that are in there. And it's pretty amazing because there are people in there 24/7, which is the last thing I need, because if I ever want to talk to someone at 3 a.m, there are people there.
Well, out of curiosity, I would have popped in. You might. I used to be up at that time, but not anymore. But Elon Musk was on.
He got panned, by the way. Everyone said he was boring. Yeah. I didn't hear it.
Well, the question was he going to come in stoned or not? But when he came in, he was on at 10 p.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. 1 a.m.
A.m. Right.
I'm sorry, I wasn't staying up for him. I was up, but I wasn't staying up for him to be there. But yeah, it goes around the clock. And I found that doing my walking or exercising, or sometimes just looking for an interesting conversation. And we're going to run out of time pretty quickly here. But what I wanted to share with other people is there are rooms that if you pitch, if you sell, you're out. They will just cut you off. Yep. There are some rooms that allow it, but this is not to go on there and then there's going to be a handful of people dominating. So
right. The other thing that I think it's important to mention in the remaining time we have is the vibe that I have gotten is this is a very helpful community, and people are willing to network. I had someone just now reach out to me via LinkedIn who saw and heard me on Clubhouse about talking about assessments, and they said, hey, we should chat. That's social media working for me. I've never gotten that type of reaction from Twitter, Facebook, without putting out a ton of content and whatnot. So for people who are high Ds, for those of you who are disc literate in the audience, this is the app for you, because you can turn it on when you want, get in there, contribute, listen, and then.
And it is about.
So it sounds like their great tagline could be "People helping people," huh?
Yeah, that would fit. And again, some rooms are not all that, cordial, but most of them far and away have been, at least based on my experience.
So Mike, we're just about out of time. If somebody wants to find you in Clubhouse, what's your handle?
Well, it's very easy. It's Spremulli, Spremulli. And I would encourage folks to get an invite and get on there, if nothing else, just to secure your name. Then you can start connecting and following people, and it's pretty intuitive and very easy to use. So
and
check
for
it
anybody,
out.
if anybody wants to reach out to me or follow me, it's at Googlization Guy. So
Very appropriate.
And I'm not on Clubhouse yet, but give me 24 hours.
yeah,
There you go. You'll be on it by next week.
we'll get you there. Hey, thanks, Mike.
Hey, my pleasure. Always.
I will look forward to whatever we're going to talk about next time. Maybe it'll be Clubhouse 2.0 or.
Well, there probably will be, because it's moving so fast. We'll see. And if your listeners want that, I'm happy to bring back some more goodies.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
For being part of it. Joyce, there we are. Another, wow.
Wow.
How quick can you go? Appreciate
Blink and it's over, right?
Yeah. Don't blink. But that's a good thing. Geeks, you've been listening to Geeks, Geezers and Googlization. Thank you for being part of Googlization Nation. If you're not part of it yet, please subscribe to googlizationnation.com. Don't forget, what your COVID-19, I just saw the Herman Trend Alert today.
Right. Yes.
It came out right
it was
before the show.
COVID-19 winners. And at the top was
There are winners.
a way to sign up for this subscription.
Okay. So excellent. HermanTrendAlert.com.
Right.
You can get that and past issues. For those who enjoy listening on a podcast, please subscribe and please rate. Please tell us what you like and about the show. You can get us on Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, you name it. We are there. I want to thank everybody again. Thank you, Kevin Grossman. Thank you, the Talent Board, for being part of it, sort of leading the way on candidate experience.
And thank you, Ira.
Thank you. Until next week, don't let the shift hit your plans.
Bye, everyone.